Well, welcome to Profiles in Politics, everyone. I'm Congressman G.T. Thompson. I want to thank you for joining me on this Profiles in Politics segment to introduce you to outstanding leaders in the public arena, rising stars, those who are serving, those who are called to serve. You know, public service is a tremendous honor and can make a real difference in the lives of others and our families and our communities. For this to work, though, we need individuals who bring commitment and a selfless sense of service to the job. Too many in the public arena, quite frankly, can be described as selfish, not selfless. Being selfless, having a commitment to making a difference in the lives of other people, that really describes today's Profiles in Politics special guest. Retired Army Reserve Colonel Stacy Garrity's life story really is exemplified by her role as a trailblazing businesswoman and her decorated service on the battlefields of Iraq. After graduating from Sayre High School in Bradford County, where she continues to reside to this day, she earned a degree in finance and economics from Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania, and later received a certificate from the Cornell University Business Management Institute. While serving in the U.S. Army Reserve, Stacy started work as a cost accountant at Global Tungsten and Powders Corporation, a global supplier of refractory powders, and worked her way up to become one of 2 female vice presidents. She also serves on the board of the Bradford County United Way and is a trustee of Guthrie Hospital. You know, Stacy's service in the Army Reserve brought her to national attention. Amid scandals about prisoner abuse at other facilities, the national media highlighted her stellar performance as one of the officers in charge of an internment camp for enemy combatants in Iraq. The Iraqis dubbed her the Angel of the Desert when her service at Camp Bucca in southern Iraq resulted in a perfect record. She kept the camp secure and American troops safe without a single complaint of abuse from Iraqi soldiers, insurgents interned there. Stacy served a remarkable 3 deployments in defense of America in 1991 in Operation Desert Storm, in 2003 in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and in 2008 in Operation Enduring Freedom. She was awarded the Bronze Star twice for exceptional service and received the Legion of Merit before retiring from the Army Reserve with the rank of Colonel. She's married to Daniel Gizzi, a project analyst at Cornell Incorporated. Stacy worships at both the Christian Life Church and Emory Baptist Church, and I am very pleased to welcome this morning to Profiles in Politics, Stacy Garrity. Stacy, I'm going to yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Congressman GT. So what I was saying, apparently when I got cut off, was speaking of selfless service that absolutely exemplifies you. You put the Commonwealth ahead of politics, and I so very much appreciate you taking the time to introduce my candidacy to PA 15, and also Marcy, I really appreciate you coordinating this. And I take it I'm still there?
Yes.
You are still there. The floor is all yours.
Okay, that's fantastic. So you did a fantastic job introducing myself. I'll just say a couple of other things. So my last deployment in 2008-2009 was at Camp Bucca in southern Iraq. I was the acting battalion commander. We had 7,000 detainees and 1,200 soldiers. And of course, the very best thing is when you bring all your soldiers home that you took with you, which we did, but also we had 0 abuse allegations and 0 escape attempts. So it was really, I was really blessed to be able to have that opportunity to bring freedom and liberty to people that never knew it. As far as my civilian job, I have spent 33 years at the same company, Global Tungsten and Powders, which is the largest tungsten smelter in the Western world. I've had positions like Director of Sales and Marketing, managing $650 million of revenue, Managing Director for our Bruntal facility that's in the Czech Republic, Vice President of 2 out of 3 of our business units, and my current position is Vice President of Industrial Liaison and Congressional. So what I do in that position is, for example, like when the governor shut us down, I was able to make sure that we had waivers and stay open, and I also helped a fairly large number of smaller tool companies in the Pittsburgh area and some in St. Mary's stay open as well. And we also received a $4.2 million grant from Industrial Base Assessment and Sustainment, and that will be to increase our defense capabilities at our plant. So why do I want to be the treasurer? Well, I am totally devoted to the Commonwealth. I've spent overseas protecting us, spent a lot of time investing in it, and I truly want to bring a better treasury to our Pennsylvania taxpayers. I am tried and tested, and I'm ready to take on this important mission. And I see right now that everybody understands with this coronavirus and our significant budget shortfalls that these offices are very important, that we don't have the fox watching the henhouse. So why is the office important? Because it looks out for the financial health of our Commonwealth. It's the person who manages Pennsylvania's money and assets, and we're talking $120 billion in public monies. So things like unclaimed property, tuition assistance program, reviewing contracts. But one of the most important things I would say is serving as an oversight role. So making sure our finances are transparent, and so taxpayers can see how their money is being spent. And some of the things that I want to do is a wholesale review of the office, because 2 out of the 3 last treasurers were convicted for corruption. Making every penny transparent, because money spent in Harrisburg doesn't belong to bureaucrats or politicians, it belongs to our taxpayers. And our current treasurer's office has received a C in transparency, and that's just not good enough for Pennsylvania. The other thing I want to mention is that, jobs are going to come back to the United States. And it's already starting to happen because of coronavirus. And we need to make sure that Pennsylvania receives our fair share of jobs, because the only way we're going to get ourselves out of this deficit is to grow our way out of it. It's not going to be to tax our way out of it. We have to grow our way out of it. So we have to make sure our state is competitive, and we need all of the oil and gas jobs, and the medical industry will be coming back, and we need to position ourselves so that we get our fair share of these jobs that come back. I'd also say that right now, I think you can see during this unprecedented time in the coronavirus that we need leaders that lead. We need leaders that lead from the front, that are going to stand up and protect our vulnerable seniors, make sure that we have jobs, and not just sit back, be out on the front lines. And I don't think that we have that right now. So maybe I'll finish up with telling you a little bit about what we're doing with our campaign while we're kind of stuck at home. So of course we're doing these Zoom conference calls. We're trying to Zoom around the state with the Trump Victory Team. We're building relationships and building up our social media. So we have received a number of endorsements, like former Attorney General Ernie Priet, Frank Noonan, who you might not know this name, but he was a former Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner, LifePak, Congressman Marino, Senator Santorum, Ollie North, the Firearms FOAC Group, Representative Kathy Rapp, and Major General Gronsky, who you might not know that name either, but he was the commander of the Pennsylvania National Guard. So we're staying as busy as we can, trying to get our name out there, because since I'm not a politician, I'm not so well known. So with that, unless you want me to speak about anything else, I would open it up for questions.
GT, we do have a special guest on our call today. So Ken, do you have a question or anything that you'd like to add?
She and I had a detention facility. I was the FOB commander. And did you work with Colonel Schmidt?
I did not. So I was at Camp Bucca in 0304 and 0809.
I commanded Abu Ghraib. That's enough about me. I'm strongly encouraged about your next position, your future position in life. And I'm a strong Republican, I always have been. It's like Todd Platt had said when I was at, not Todd Platt, Scott Perry. He's my congressman,
Yes.
and he just said, you know, he said we're literally we're at war right now, and you'll have an important mission in your position as treasurer in Pennsylvania. I'm still able to appreciate your continued service to the nation, definitely, especially all your time downrange.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you for your service. I had been to Abu Ghraib many times, transferred detainees back and forth, and yes, we had 3 internment facilities at Buka. I had the largest one of 7,000 detainees, but yeah, that was crazy times for sure. And I know those names you talked about as well.
Okay, we do not have any other questions in the chat, so if GT, I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself, and if you have any questions for Stacy.
Sure, absolutely, Marcy. Thank you, and thanks to Ken for his service to our country. It's great to have not one but 2 American heroes on this call this morning. Stacy, you touched on this briefly. You mentioned the coronavirus a few times. You know, there are literally billions of dollars that are coming from Washington to the governor's office in response to the coronavirus crisis. You know, what role is there a role for the Pennsylvania Treasurer to serve in terms of assuring that these monies are used for the intended purpose that Congress used for the intended purpose that Congress intended?
Yeah, there sure is. I think the role of the Treasurer's Office is to make sure that we spend the money where, well, mainly where it's appropriated. If I can back up a little bit, we had $900 million that the Treasurer allowed the governor to spend that was not appropriated by the House. Now, wouldn't that $900 million be nice to have right now because of these significant budget shortfalls of, you know, I don't know what the number has grown to, but 2 to 3 billion, 3 to 4 billion, that would have been a nice little rainy day fund to have. And I think we always need to have a rainy day fund because you never know when you're going to have a crisis and where it's going to come from. But yes, I think we need to make sure the money goes to where it's supposed to go, and that that's the issue of not having a Republican treasurer for the last 20 to 25 years, not having an auditor general since the 80s. We have the fox watching the hen house, and we don't have any checks and balances. And I think that right now, in this particular time of crisis, it particularly highlights the importance of that.
Yeah, it sure does. If there was ever a time that emphasized the need for proper fiscal oversight and really taking the right type of management of the Commonwealth's funds, to be able to, I mean, it's just what we've been through have shown how important those rainy day funds are. Maybe we could get them to Harrisburg to take that more seriously. We call it the pandemic fund or something a little more than just a rainy day.
Right.
How would you, as Pennsylvania, well, first of all, if anyone else has a question, please go ahead in the chat and send that question on to Marcy, and she'll facilitate those questions. I want to encourage everyone to do that. If you would like to, please do. Let Marcy know that you have a question or an observation. Stacy, I got a question for you. As Pennsylvania's treasurer, now you talked about at the larger level, 35,000 feet, in terms of, you gave a great description of what the treasurer does and the responsibilities. But bringing that down to, quite frankly, down to the living room of every Pennsylvania family, how would you as Pennsylvania treasurer make a difference in the lives of everyday citizens and families of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Okay, well, of course, there's a lot of, programs like unclaimed property and tuition assistance program, but I think what most people care about is, as treasurer, as these row offices, we are the top executives in Pennsylvania. And so I think that it's important that you lead, and you lead from the front, and you weigh on issues, because if you think about it, being responsible for the Commonwealth's fiscal health, you can touch on everything, and you can use your bully pulpit to make sure that we're taking care of our seniors, because that's a third of our population. And to make sure that we have jobs in Pennsylvania, because that is so incredibly important. And the way I can weigh on that is to make sure our state is competitive, make sure that we're set up to bring those in. And so I think that touches the lives of everybody. And I think that, like I said, we need leaders that lead from the front. And I think that's missing now, because everybody's kind of, sitting in the back and, just trying to push out programs so that our citizens are reliant on government, and everybody wants to get out there and work. I'm telling you, I'm in Nebraska right now. It's like a different country. It's amazing. The restaurants are open. Everything's open. Masks are mandatory in supermarkets, and they have hardly any cases. So it's like a different country. So it was truly amazing. So be encouraged, everybody, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
That's
There you
great.
go. One of the complaints I hear frequently from friends that serve in Harrisburg as part of the State House and State Senate is a lack of teamwork. That the members of the administration and the executive branch, these row offices such as treasurer, there's not, sometimes it really lacks collaboration. And I know in your with your experiences, both professionally for several decades of working with a significant number of employees in a very successful organization, also your service through the military, obviously being a leader, being part of a team, motivating your team has been very important. What can you bring to the Harrisburg team that's maybe missing now, of engaging, making sure the members of the legislative branch have a voice at the table, and to be able to work in a collaborative way?
Right. No, that's a great question. So in the military, okay, so of course we get missions, and you have to accomplish the mission, and it doesn't matter, you have to reach across the aisle, and you have to find a way to make it work to accomplish the goal. And you don't have the luxury to sit back and wait till there's folks that you want to work with, and you can't worry about partisan politics. You have to reach across the aisle and accomplish the mission. The same thing in being in business. You have to turn a profit. You have to make money, or you're going to be furloughing and laying off people. And the most important thing, I'm a very big advocate, as you know, of the industrial base and keeping jobs. And with that being said, you have to work together to find a way to make money, to keep those employed, to increase jobs, to support the industrial base. And that's what I would do.
Well, and that's what you did during this crisis, Stacy. I don't know, for those who are tuning in here, Stacy used her vast experience and her leadership skill, and to help people help other companies, some of them competitors actually to her company, to navigate the uncharted waters of applying for waivers, to be able to stay open and in business and keeping jobs going. And I know you did that, reaching into my congressional district a lot with our powdered metal organizations that we have, and that that's selfless actions that you did was just very, very much appreciated. Marcy, I've got another question, but I will defer if someone else is in the queue.
Sure. I do have a question for you, Stacy, and that is, how much money do you think it will take to run a statewide race?
That's a great question, because now that, the activity is a little bit restricted and fundraising is so extremely difficult right now because of obvious reasons, because of the crisis. Yeah, I would have said, $1 million to $2 million. Now it's probably, realistically, I can't see how anybody's going to be able to raise more than, $500,000. Depending on what happens in the fall, of course, we don't know what's going to happen 2 weeks down the road. Really, it's the situation evolves so quickly. So I can't say I'd put a hard number on it, but right now I'll tell you fundraising is very difficult. We're trying to conserve all our cash for the fall, and hopefully we'll get up to $500,000.
Okay, and how do people contribute to your campaign?
Okay, so you can get on my website, which is www.garrity4pa.com, and there's a place there where you can donate, or if somebody wants to write a check, there's a P.O. Box in Harrisburg, and that is Garrity for PA, P.O. Box 62224, and I believe the zip code is, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it's 17106.
Okay, great. GT, go ahead with your next question.
All right. Obviously checks and balances, we talk about that among our form of government that we have, which is a constitutional republic. It's reflected in the organization that we have both at the federal level and the state level. And that checks and balances, the checks and balances between the within the executive branch and the legislative branch and the judicial branch. How important is it for the treasurer to be an effective checks and balance on the Harrisburg spending?
It's extremely important, because right now you can see that's what we don't have. I mean, if we had that, we would have had our rainy day fund or our crisis fund, our pandemic fund of $900 million. So I think it's extremely important that we just can't give an open checkbook to whoever's in office. I mean, regardless of what side it is, we have to be fiscally responsible. The governor now, in spite of these significant budget shortfalls, intends to spend 4% more next year than this year. And that's just not going to work. Like I said, we cannot tax and spend our way out of a crisis. We need to grow our way out of it. And that's why I think that there's a lot of reform that needs to happen so that Pennsylvania is the most manufacturing friendly state, and that we absolutely do get our fair share, more than our fair share, of jobs that do come back as a result of the coronavirus.
Yeah, you think about the situation with the number of cases that are statewide of coronavirus, the number of deaths, and the fact that Pennsylvania is one of 6 states that it's well over 50%, probably over 60% of those incidents of the deaths occurred in nursing homes. Can you imagine what you could do as governor managing a crisis? If you had almost $1 billion, how many of those deaths that we could have prevented? And I know that this is going to be a very costly pandemic, much more than $1 billion when you look at gas tax revenue loss and income tax will be reduced and all the other impacts. But right up front, to be able to have almost $1 billion that could have been deployed for personal protective equipment within long-term care, being able to minimally ratchet up the payment rates, the Medicare reimbursement rates, to be able to have more infection control specialists and nurses, for some more higher level professional nurses deployed in long-term care. And you could have accomplished all that if you're sitting there with almost $900 million. So it just speaks to how important that is. So Marcy, before I close up here, I don't want to I don't want to ignore any other questions that might have come in.
Okay, so I do have one last question, which is, as treasurer, will you work to move disclose of state contracts off the honor system, in quotes, and fully accountable to the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes, absolutely. That's, I think, one of the big issues is transparency. I mean, in addition to our honor system contracts, we also have, dozens of off-the-books accounts that could, as Congressman GT and I were speaking about, could be potential for a rainy day fund. that we haven't even talked about. But yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why the current treasurer's office has a C rating in transparency. And, you know, this money belongs to the taxpayer. So yes, and I think we need to be totally transparent so that the taxpayers can hold our government officials accountable.
Terrific.
Very-
I'll let you close it up from here, GT.
All right, Marcy, thank you so much. Stacy, thank you so much for being on, once again, on Profiles in Politics. I want to encourage everybody, we got an election coming up on June 2nd. I think you have until May, is it 26th or 29th to be able to apply?
26.
26th to apply for a mail-in ballot. Pennsylvania changed the law last year. You can do a mail-in ballot for any reason. It used to be that to be eligible for an absentee ballot, you had to obviously be somebody who had a disability, couldn't go to the polls, or you were working outside that your voting precinct on election day. That law has changed. I will say I've been very impressed with the numbers. The only two I've seen numbers so far, mail-in ballots, have been Clarion County and Venango County, but it's been remarkable. One county was 7 times more activity in terms of requesting ballots. Clarion County, I'm not sure which one it was. One was 7, one was 10 times. So it was amazing. I've got mine. This is actually, I got to put this in the mail today. This is my actual ballot. So Stacy, you're winning 1-0. Okay, 1-0. You got my vote right in here in this, and this. I'm going to put this in the hands of the United States Postal Service here momentarily. I encourage everybody else to get out and vote. You know, please share the message that as election time comes, it's so important that people vote, and I do care who they vote for, but the most important thing is, the most important thing I care about is that they vote. There are a lot of folks that are on the call today. You know, I'm obviously looking at Stacy. We had Ken. I see Barry, who's a good friend of mine. I know he served our nation, and there's others, I'm sure. You know, if there's no other reason to vote, it's to honor the folks who have served and sacrificed. A lot of good people have gone off. They've served, they sacrificed. Some of them paid the ultimate sacrifice, and to be able to provide us that right and responsibility of voting and defend that for us. And so, if you don't have any other reason, and quite frankly, if you get to know Stacy Garrity, there's a good reason to go vote. But beyond Stacy, it's recognizing and serving those who have served and sacrificed. So Stacy, thank you for being with us on Profiles in Politics. It's great to have you here. Best wishes. And thank you for being a part of this segment of Profiles in Politics today. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, but we overcame it. So and that's what life is all about, overcoming the challenges. And so thank you so much to everybody. Everybody have a great day. Stay well and stay healthy.